Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar on applying ink formulation and quality control programs to help you win in the marketplace. I'm Robert Grotans, the Global Technical Marketing Manager at X-Rite, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Presenting today is Roger Webb, one of our applications engineers specializing in printing and inks. A few things to go over just before we get started. Due to the number of people that are attending today, we'll keep everyone muted. During the webinar, if you have any questions, please use the questions function on the GoToWebinar panel. I'll be moderating the questions, and at the end of the webinar, we'll have time for a short Q&A session. Finally, this webinar will be recorded, and you'll receive a link so you can review the webinar at your convenience. So with that, I'll turn it over to Roger to kick things off.
Good morning, everyone. Glad that you could make the webinar today. We'll be going over just a few things in relationship to ink formulation software as well as ColorCert. So these are your key business objectives. We're wanting to get ROI improvement, speed to the press room, waste reduction, and full production capacity. How does formulation and QC help in the ink room environment as well as the press side environment? It reduces the lead time, the run lengths, make ready time, maintains color consistency, hits your customer's specifications, avoids any of the variations in productions, which all equal to delivering high quality prints. How is your operation evaluating color quality across the workflow? Is it through visual assessment only, through a visual assist by way of light booth, or any other conventional type of usage? Using spectrophotometers with digital standards, workflow connectivity, using a spectro and software for reporting for each job.
I think we seem to be stuck in the poll. Can you try sharing your screen again, Roger?
It says they're still seeing it.
I'm sorry about this, everyone. It looks like you might have lost connection, Roger.
Okay. My apologies,
or try
guys.
stop sharing your screen and share again. Okay, now try sharing again. There we go. Okay, yep. Thanks, everyone. So that was the first poll question, so we'll move on. Hopefully when we get to the next poll, it'll go better.
Okay, so should we be using a visual guide as a standard? As we all know, Fandex, Pantone books, things like that are inspirational for the design place. However, you know, they're still subjective to the environment through the material that they're printed upon, etc. So therefore, those should never truly be used as a standard. A standard should only be something that is static information. Okay, while brand owners, they enjoy having their printed pieces, which are good for visual assessment, but never to be utilized in a quality control environment. So poll question number 2, what's your current waste within your production process? Is that less than an hour per job or more than an hour per job?
We'll give 30 seconds or so for everyone to answer that, and then I'll close it.
Okay.
Okay. It looks like for some reason when I'm closing the polls, it's not switching back to your screen. So if you can stop sharing and just share again, we can continue.
Okay. Okay,
There
I
you
get
go.
back
Thank
on.
you.
Okay, so the impact of ink formulation software. Okay, that'll be the first thing that we go over is the IFS portion of the presentation. The associated printing cost is, of course, number 1 is going to be your production and your press time. The second most costly is the substrate, and last but not least is the ink. Okay, how does IFS help in cost? It helps in the ink room, production, also in inventory. Okay, so how does it contribute to savings in your ink room? It saves on the formulation time, which time is money, through eliminating, a multitude of proofs being produced by your ink technicians, corrections, and manual calculations. It allows a more cost-efficient method of utilizing press returns. And you also have the ability to direct import into a dispenser. Okay, how does it save within your production environment? Most printers that's not utilizing IFS experience significantly more press downtime related to inconsistent color from the ink room and from manually adjusting colors on press without any type of sufficient guidance. Okay, and your inventory savings. IFS optimizes the use of what's called ink leftovers or returns. You can utilize those in a more cost-efficient method. Your higher quantity or higher cost inks can be utilized in that fashion. The accuracy of the inks delivered to production reduces the amounts of ads at the production, therefore reducing the amount of return. And of course, in your inventory, anytime that you eliminate the adjustments on press, it helps you to reduce the amount of substrate waste, time efficiency on press, and that in turn allows you to be able to control your inventory of your raw materials. Okay, the critical notables for IFS is extremely dependable upon the color assortment that's used. So if you have a great color assortment, you're going to yield great results. If you have a bad assortment, you'll yield poor results. Okay, and it's recommended to be utilized in an ink room environment. Okay, it should not be utilized for color matching on press. Okay, so here we'll go through some of the ink formulation and how it actually works and operates. Okay, so This is what IFS looks like. It's a very friendly, usable piece of software. While it can be complex, and it is under the hood, the navigation of it is relatively simple. Okay, so first you'll just ask it to formulate your recipe. It'll ask you for your target. What do you want to match? You have many different ways of pulling up and retrieving standards. You can either measure them in, you can go to color libraries. For this example, I selected to go to the Pantone Live. Okay, selected 186 red. The next thing it's going to prompt you for is what type of substrate are you going to be printing on. As well, you can either measure the substrate, you can retrieve it from a database, or you can use whatever was the assortment was built on. For this example, we'll use the assortment that it was built on. Select next. It's going to ask you to define the film thickness. How much ink are you going to apply to the sheet? And that's all relative to how the assortment was generated. So 100% is exactly the same amount as was applied when the assortment was created. Then the next step, it's going to ask you what colorants do you want to use for this recipe. There's an option that you can use your leftovers. If you have created a leftover, you also have that option to utilize it within this recipe by selecting that little check box at the bottom. Once you've selected what you want to utilize, you have two different types of formulation. You have a regular formulation, meaning that it is no better or worse than what it is whenever you implement it. All theoretical. Palette formulation is a formulation mode where it takes measurements that you have generated before in the past, and it utilizes those recipes and those measurements to calculate for your next one. So it's not, it can potentially get better with you the more that you use it. Okay, so the next screen is going to populate your recipe options based on whatever criteria that you set forth for it. Okay, as you can see across the top, the X-Rite Optimum, Delta E 2000, Delta E, etc. Those are options that you have to segregate your recipes. So when you say finish, it populates your theoretical recipe on your display. Okay, as you can see under your target color, there's a recipe and it says calculated, meaning that it is a theoretical match. It has never seen this before. The software is predicting that you can get within a delta E of 0.6. And you can scroll through the array of recipes that you have just by toggling through the switch. Once you've selected what you want, you measure that target, that swatch that you have produced using that recipe that it gave you. And as you can see here, it yielded a 2.5. Okay, and a 2.5 is not within the specifications of the color because this color had a tolerance of 2. So therefore I want to correct it. So the next tab open is a correction. Okay, so you select the correction. It's going to ask you if you want to add any other components to this recipe. If you're fine with the components that was available for this particular recipe, you select next. If not, you select them and guide them over. And then it'll populate your correction. It says that you should be able to achieve this color within a 1.42 Delta E 2000. Then once you hit select, it will populate it on your display screen. Okay, it says that for this color, If you were to add 4.61% of your ink leftover red and an additional 9.633% of your Rubin red, you can yield a delta E of 1.4. So at that point, you make that correction to your ink and you measure it again, and you repeat that process until you get within your tolerance. Okay, and now we're at the third poll question. What QC solutions are you currently looking for? Do you measure colors to compare to a standard, non-job-based solution? Require measuring for more advanced color metrics and job traceability? Do you use a scorecard server for brand owner management? And we'll give you a little bit of time to answer one of those. And did the screen continue to share, Robert?
Okay, I just closed the poll. Go ahead and share again. It looks like the poll question is remaining on the screen. Perfect.
Okay. All right. So printing to spot color specifications. You have your standard spot colorants, and then you have your tolerance or your delta E deviation from your standard. Okay. And here is an example of your ColorCert QA tools. QA tools is generated to and utilized in place of a lot of our legacy softwares like Color Master, etc. It has similar screen sets and several other advantages. So ColorCert is established it's a module-based piece of software. Okay, so you can have as much or as little as you desire. Okay, so the best match portion of the QA tools within ColorCert works as such, and it's one of the most unique features of QA tools. All right, it tells you from a density standpoint whether or not you can achieve the color without any addition of colorants. Okay, so if you notice on your left-hand side, that is your delta E numbers, 0 to 4. Across the bottom is your density numbers, meaning that within a 1.6 to roughly a 1.83 for this color, that is your threshold. Okay, that's where you will achieve a 2.0 delta E. Anything outside of those, you can expect to receive a failure. These are indications of when a best match yields you results that are going to be achievable by way of density, and when they're not. You have your operating range for the second one is barely in tolerance, so you know that this may perhaps be something that needs to be adjusted. The third one, there is absolutely no way of achieving that color through way of density. Okay, so it needs to be reformulated, or it's going to need some components added to it. Okay, so at that point, you can always select on that trial that will not give you that acceptable match, and you can send it back to ink formulation software. Okay, once you send it back to ink formulation software, you'll have a request that is prompted within IFS. IFS then in turn receives that colorant and that trial measurement in and corrects it. Printing to a print quality specification. Okay. Within ColorCert, it allows you to be able to control substrates, your CMYK solids, your overprints, your dot gain or TVI, your gray balance targets, and your spot colors. And this is what ColorCert pressroom tools looks like. Okay. So it gives you the ability to be able to measure and control all those attributes of a printed job. Okay, so it's not doing color by color. It is a job-based workflow. So that gives you the ability to be able to focus on only the things that matter within that job. So anything that is indicated by a green light, you don't necessarily need to worry about. Anything indicated by a red light, those are things or attributes of that job that need to be taken into consideration because you're getting a failure for a score. And that pretty much wraps up our presentation for the QC, the IFS portion. And just to try to give you a quick overview, very high level overview of the way that these options that X-Rite has to offer can help you in your work environment.
Thanks, Roger. We do have some time for questions now. If you have any specific questions, feel free to submit them and I'll read them out loud. Looks like we have one already. Someone's just asking, what is the latest version of ColorCert and IFS?
The latest version of IFS, I believe, is 1.9, and ColorCert is 3.6.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions that they would like to ask? We'll give everyone a minute just in case someone's typing right now.
And those releases are also available on X-Rite's website. So you can go on there and find the latest release of any of those pieces of software.
Looks like we have no other questions, so we'll actually wrap it up here. Again, thanks everyone for joining. You will receive an email within a day for this recording, so if you want to see Roger go through the software again, you'll get a recording to that. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact us, and have a good day.
Thank you all.